Hey, good morning.
Yikes. Good morning, Eric. How are you, Eric? We hear you, Eric, loud and clear. This is Houston.
We are here.
Just
Now,
so Aaron doesn't turn his microphone on.
Now we're both going to be here. Hey,
It's been a crazy morning
hey,
already.
it's one of those days. You know, it happens to all of us.
He texts me, "Hey, where's your microphone?" It's over in the youth building. I grab it when I come up. This is at 7:20. We're good. We're golden.
And we got 40 minutes to
We
go.
have 40 minutes.
Yeah, and here we are. 5 after. I don't know what it is.
What is it about the best laid plans?
Oh my goodness. Well,
is it of
you
mice
know,
and men, or is it
when your keys are MIA, this is what happens.
I have no idea where my keys are. I have my church keys. See, my church keys and my car keys got separated yesterday.
Ooh, that's bad.
I think they're in the Durango, which I was driving, which I left with Carter, also without keys because he left his keys hanging.
In San Antonio.
No, on the key at the house, but he's staying at Marcus's house.
Oh.
It's all good. It's good. It's great. It's good. It's great. It's fine. It's good. I'm not leaving for Corpus Christi in 7 hours.
Right.
8 hours.
You got a little bit going on today.
Yeah, no big deal.
Nah.
No big deal.
Nah. You got 7 hours to find those keys.
Right? Kids moving here and moving there, and college kids coming
Graduating.
home. College kids graduating. I don't know who authorized that, but
Right.
I mean, I'm happy it's coming, but man, I'm old. 2 kids out of college now.
I know it. Well, 2 kids out of college. Man, we started late then. Because I just got one. I just got one in college.
Because I'll remind you that you are much
I know.
older than
I'm in a whole nother decade than you.
No, 50-year-olds are old.
They are.
Just saying.
They are.
So I
So you turn 50, you put sweater vests on. This is what happens.
I turned 47 and started wearing long sleeves every day.
You do, man. It's like when in July you'll come in with a long sleeve on.
And do you want to know why?
You don't want to get burned?
I started seeing some sunspots.
Yeah. I wondered if that was
And,
probably the case.
I'm very pale skinned,
Yes.
light skinned. The Warrens are Welsh.
Used to be blonde.
I'm kind of blonde.
There's a few blonde left in there, sure.
I mean, there's probably more gray than blonde at this point, but it's I gotta turn my phone off because I'm gonna get notifications all morning if I don't. Yeah, I mean, I used to be blonde.
Right.
When I was young, I was blonde.
Toe-headed.
I never understood that term.
I don't either. I don't know what it means either.
Someone explain that to me. We're old,
What?
but we're not that old. 50s are the new 40s. I like that, Eric.
Yes. Says one with the experience of the 50s.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give you that, Eric.
Yep.
You are
Yep.
you're the wise dad in the house right now.
Absolutely.
Looks like it's just us too. There's one other person with you. But
Well, others may join in and
they
watch later.
They expected us at 8, and when we were late, they went back to their coffee.
That's right. Well, they'll come back and check it in later.
They will.
So you put a post out there yesterday.
I did. Let me go to that. See if there's been any updates to that.
You put a post out there. What does our general audience want to hear from Dads with Coffee?
And we got a few responses.
Yeah, we got a few responses.
It wasn't overwhelming,
No.
but
That's okay. Your sister was like, "That's a good question."
yeah.
That's not helping Cheryl.
Thanks. That's why I asked it. I like the the Wi-Fi's down. Anyway, you don't need to hear those problems. Are we live right now, Eric? Can you hear us?
Yeah.
I'm here. Sean's there.
Sean's here.
Well, that's funny because Sean is the one who posted the question, and I don't want to word it incorrectly. So
No.
let me get there.
And Justin put something out there too.
Yeah, and Lisa commented, "How do you trust God
Mm-hmm.
when those in the church hurt you?"
Yeah. Because that's the place it's not supposed to happen.
That's the place it's not supposed to happen. That's correct.
And that's really tough. So all I can do at that point, because if I were to just talk about it, it would just be cliche.
Right.
It'd be trite sayings, cliche things. You trust God, not man. And there's truth there. I mean, Lisa said, tell people to trust
God, not man.
and we need to do that. I mean, one piece of advice that I would give to anybody, because the question was raised, but she's not going to be the only one that has this issue.
No, she's the one that was bold enough to say
She was
it.
bold enough to put it out there, and so kudos to you for putting it out there. There's a couple of things we have to understand, and one is Jesus even said this is a hospital, not a country club. And that's my paraphrase.
Right. Yeah.
But he said it's a hospital, not a country club, and sick people have viruses, and sick people that have issues and sicknesses that are contagious, give it away. It's like when you're sick, don't go to the ER because you just get sicker.
Right.
I mean,
but then what do you do?
I know. But the point is that if you don't want this was something that our pediatrician told us early on. She was a proponent of 4 weeks at the house.
Okay.
After the birth, stay home 4 weeks. She knew we were in church work. They were in church.
Sure.
Stay home 4 weeks. And so we were at the checkup at time, and we said, hey, when would you, because we were in an RSV moment.
Right.
When would you suggest going back to church? And this is what she said. When you're prepared, and this was Samuel, when you're prepared for him to get sick, go to church. Because the nature of the beast is when you get out in public, that's what's going to happen. Somebody's going to have something they don't even know they have. They're going to touch or change his diaper or whatever, or people are going to hug him, or
Yeah, let me kiss the baby.
yeah, and they're going to unknowingly, unintentionally pass something off. She said, when you're ready for him to be sick, you can go to church.
But I think that's different in this scenario.
Well,
I mean,
no,
as
but-
church people,
Well, but what I'm leading to in the analogy is that if the church is a hospital, then you've got people at all various levels of sickness.
right?
And the problem that we face, now that's the truth of it. Now, in reality, the problem is the very people that you look to for help. Now, if your doctor was giving away the virus to you, that would be that's where the complication
Okay,
rises.
bring that in.
Okay, that's where it rises. But the problem is most often what I find people that say, I've been hurt by the church, or the trust has been broken with the church. And again, I'm not speaking directly to you, Sean. I'm just saying in general to the question that was raised. The people that have hurt, it's not by Big C church. It's probably not even by Little C church, the local church. It's by some people that are in the church that ought to know better and be better and are not. And now we're getting hurt people because of some people. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's not like
Sadly, it does make sense because
out of the 200 people that show up on a Sunday morning, it's not 200 people that hurt you. It's about 15 people that hurt you, and
which is way too many. So okay,
one's too many.
okay. How do we affect change then in those individuals? Do we go to them and say, "Hey, you're hurting people. Stop."
Yes. I mean, there has to be a level of accountability involved. This is what we used to call church discipline. And some denominations do this really well.
Right.
A lot of non-denominational churches will do this really well. Baptists stink at it. We don't do it because we want to abuse grace, not enforce morality and ethical Christ-like nature. So we would rather say, oh, well, that's just who they are. No. If you're in Christ, you're not your own anymore, Galatians 2:20. You're not your own, you're Christ.
A new creation.
So
Right.
act better. Be better.
Be better.
And I was telling somebody last night about the podcast yesterday, about, the actions are what we focus on. Stop doing that, stop thinking that, stop saying that, when the reality is the action is nothing more than a response to the attitude you have. You either disrespect people, you don't believe, you have a bad attitude, you're negative, but that attitude's a direct result with who you hang out with most, who you listen to, what you watch, who you hang out with.
You allow that to
It- it-
fester
it-
and to
yeah.
grow and to be untreated.
Right.
And it just becomes
It shapes your attitude.
cancerous.
It shapes your attitude, and your attitude is the action. So what we have to do is help people. And sadly, I would say 99% of the problem at our own local church, First Baptist Crowley, the problems we have right now have more to do with the fact that most of our people aren't hanging out with Jesus enough. Because if you hang out with Jesus enough, it shapes your attitude and that shapes your activity. But if we are having issues and problems and people are hurting people, it's because they don't hang out with Jesus enough because they're not acting like Jesus. They're not thinking like Jesus. They're not loving like Jesus.
Well, we sure wouldn't be winning the White Star and upward in a lot of cases.
Well, right.
That Christ-likeness star.
You know, and so how do we stop that? We have to put things in place for accountability. If somebody runs off at the mouth, somebody needs to be allowed to go and say to that person, you can't do that here.
Right. We don't.
We don't do that. We say that to children.
Oh, we do it all the time. I mean,
You know, hey, now, I know that may be how you act there, but we don't act like that here. I don't care if they're 65. You can't act like that here. Because when people hurt people, that's not being the church. That's just being the community. And we're called to be different. Ecclesia is the called out ones. We have been called out of our sinful nature, called out of the way we act normally. We've been called out of that to be different, to show Jesus. And so what do we do? So that's the corporate issue. Personally, how do you deal with that?
okay, I think that rolls straight into Lisa's question or comment. Get people to trust in God and not in man. I don't think it's necessarily in man, but I think it's necessary. I think it has something to do with they want it their way. They're trusting their own selves,
Which, yeah,
more than
same
they trust
thing.
God, which is not trusting external man.
Right. You're
It's
internal
trusting
man.
internal man,
And you're not trusting God.
right.
Because your way's better than everybody else's way because
see,
you know better.
I taught on this last night. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 is my theme verse. I mean, it's where I live. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. You know, he could have stopped with trust in the Lord, and that would have been, you know, it's like, I was telling the kids last night, it's like that baseball coach who yells at you from the dugout, hey, just hit the ball.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, coach, great idea. How do you suppose I do
Don't you
that?
think that's what I want to do while I stand here?
Yes, that is also my goal, coach, to hit the ball.
You
But
heard the story that I told about Samuel, right? I was the assistant coach.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Hey, see the ball. He literally could not
See the ball.
because he was blind. We didn't know it. He was 8. We didn't know he needed glasses yet until he was halfway through the season. And we're like, maybe we could get his eyes checked. Suddenly he could see the ball.
See ball, hit ball.
Suddenly he caught the ball in the outfield and created outs because he could see the thing coming down, you know, and it stopped hitting him in the shoulder because he could see it into his glove. I mean, you know,
It's so simple, right, coach? Hit the ball.
right,
It's so simple, right? Trust in the Lord.
right,
Yeah. Not just a little bit, though, with all your heart.
right. But without practice, you're still not going to hit the ball.
Right. So
You-
without practice, you're still not going to trust in the Lord because you're going to rely on what you've always known, which warns against.
Yeah.
Don't lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him.
Well, you're going to rely on the 3 big E's. You're going to rely on your experience, you're going to rely on your education, and you're going to rely on your own energy. And as long as you're doing that, you're not trusting Jesus.
You're not trusting a G.
Right.
Put the big G on top.
That's right. You're not trusting God. There's nothing wrong with your experience, your education, and your energy level. Nothing wrong with that. God wants to use that, but you
Exactly.
have to use that in submission to God.
Those are tools for God to
Not-
use
not-
in and through you.
Not asking God to submit to your experience and education. You need to submit those things to the Lord. But if trust has been broken to you personally, and I think that's the other half of this question, is what happens if you've been hurt? I mean, I've been hurt by nearly every church I've served. You know, but it's not the whole church.
Right.
It's people.
It's a handful.
It's a handful of people in this church. Every church I've served have been people that have hurt me, hurt my family. Every church. Because people act weird. or they don't act Jesus-like, or they run off at the mouth before they know what they're saying because they don't let God control them. And so, that's where I have to. I mean, I faced major betrayal at one church I served.
Yeah.
And, it created a lot of issues in me, and it created issues in my family because they saw it happening. I saw it happen to my dad, too, years ago. And, this is why there was a period of time I went to church, but I didn't want anything to do with leadership.
Being involved in
I certainly didn't want to do what I'm doing now, not at the time. Hey, and let me tell you, there's days today that I'm like, you sure this is what?
I've never questioned my calling.
No, I don't question my call, but it's just sometimes it's just.
Are
you ready to adjust my call?
I've often wondered why I've been called.
Sure. But how do you deal with trust issues? Well.
So what's the easy solution? Do I go to you and say, Aaron, you hurt my feelings. Aaron, you offended me.
Well, that's
Aaron,
Matthew 18. That is the biblical approach. If somebody has offended you, and that doesn't mean that they like Coke and you like Dr. Pepper. That's not an offensive situation.
I don't like either of you because I like Mountain Dew.
I know. So it has to be an offense, and you have to define that.
Right.
We're way too offended today than we used to be. But
right.
If it's an offense, the Bible says go to them. Now here's the problem. If that person's not a believer, then there's no fundamental agreement there.
Sure.
Now if that person is a believer, or at least claims to be a believer, then you need to go to that person and say, hey, what you said, what you did, that really hurt me. And but here's the problem with that. It's the same thing I tell adult children about daddy, who never said I'm proud of you, never said I love you. You can go to them and you can say, hey, you really hurt me. And they're going to be like, what?
Get over yourself.
What I do? I didn't do anything. You're just way too easy to offend. I mean, because the person that is in a hateful situation or a hateful attitude isn't going to admit to anything. In fact, they're going to turn the blame around on you and only make you feel worse.
Right. And I think that's why we have so many people it's just easily to not come back.
It is. Well, and it's because we have misunderstood forgiveness. Typically when we talk about forgive another person, and then the Bible's clear that we are to forgive. If I can't forgive another person, God withholds forgiveness of my sin. I mean, that's harsh, but that's what Jesus said.
Yeah.
So, but we misunderstand what forgiveness is, which ties back into this whole thing. If somebody's offended me, now I can't trust you, or I've been hurt. But if I believe that forgiving you is releasing you of responsibility, then I don't want to forgive you.
Exactly.
If I believe that forgiving...
That's me. I don't...
Right.
There are times I don't...
But that's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness isn't releasing them of responsibility, and forgiveness isn't condoning what they did. Forgiveness is saying, I'm not going to let what they did control me today. So I'm forgiving you of that. And that's taking your power back in today's language. Mm-hmm. I'm getting my power back in saying, look, what you did was wrong, and what you did, I'm not going to say it wasn't wrong, because it was wrong. But I'm letting it control me, and I'm done with that. So forgiving you means I'm not going to let you or that issue control me anymore, because I'm more interested in my tomorrow than yesterday. And so when I forgive somebody, it's just saying I'm not letting it manage me anymore.
I have some thoughts rolling through my head.
Sure.
And I'm thinking of the right way to say it. And it all comes back to the heart of the individual that has done the offending.
Absolutely. I agree. This is why when you are doing this forgiveness in the way that I just expressed, you may not have a conversation with them. Because going to them and saying, I forgive you, only will make it worse. You forgiving them may not involve a conversation with them. It may simply be a conversation that you're having with God saying, I'm going to release this to you.
You handle it.
You handle it because I'm letting it manage me more than I'm letting you manage me. And I need to be done with that. So I need your help, God, for me to forgive and just forgive the offense. I may not forgive the offender, but I'm forgiving the offense, which is tied to the offender. But it doesn't mean that what they did was right, and somebody still needs to go hold that person. If you're in church, somebody needs to go hold that person accountable. If you're at work and somebody sexually harasses you, you have a whole HR department to handle that.
Right.
We need that in church. We need somebody. This is why elders work so well in church life. This is why Paul told everybody to put an elder in church or a group of elders in church. And Baptists hate this, but it needs to happen. It's biblical. Put elders in church. Why? Because they're the ones charged with making sure there is that accountability that's happening. It's not just doctrinal purity. It's demonstrative purity. It's making sure that people behave properly. Now, you have somebody that just walked in church that just is a part of, that person you don't know yet. You don't have a relationship with yet. But you help them understand, hey, if you're going to be a part of this body, then this is how we behave. We're a family. We're not just an entity. We're a family here, so we can't act like this. But if somebody is in leadership or has been there a while or is deeply entrenched in the body, you need a group of people that are the accountability people. It's not the police.
Right.
It's not spiritual police, but yet it kind of is, because we need somebody that calls us on it and says, look, hey, wait. Now, we're not going to stand up and do it publicly, but unless...
Not at first.
Not at first. You got one or two of them go and talk to the person. And, hey, this is going on. We need this to stop. Well, I'm not doing anything wrong. Well, then you take them in front of the whole elder board and say, okay, this is going on. We can't do that. I'm not doing it. Well, then you bring it up to the church, in front of the church. It's what Paul says, what Jesus says. And if they still refuse, you are to treat them not as an exclusion, treat them as an unbeliever. Because if they have an unrepentant heart, they are not a believer in Jesus, so treat them like that. That would radically shape and change church life as we know it for the better. And you'd stop having church people hurt people.
So there's your answer. I don't... Sean, what's that emoji? It's like a pineapple. What is that?
I can't read it from here.
Maybe it's a nacho. Spell out the word, Sean. I'm dumb.
I'm emoji dumb. But so how do I react to that? If you're in a church that refuses to hold accountable people that are having egregious sins, you need to leave. You need to find a church that's going to hold that accountable according to the biblical approach. If a church isn't operating by the Bible, they're not a church. They're a country club.
Right.
You can have all the tradition you want, but if you're not operating according to the biblical standards, just the basic standards.
I heard a guy say once, traditions are cool, but the Bible's better.
Yeah, that guy.
Aaron Summers,
I don't know about that guy.
2020.
I don't know about that guy. I think it was at 19. It was before COVID. Remember, we lost a whole year because of COVID.
Yeah,
But it's true. I have no problem. And I've been labeled as a person who hates tradition. No, I have no problem with tradition. In fact, a lot of your millennials and Gen Zers want the ritual and they like their tradition. The problem is if tradition only serves one segment of the body, then it's an improper tradition. If it's a divine tradition, it's going to affect the whole body because we all are taking part in this process. But if it only serves a certain group, that's not a proper one.
right.
And so, tradition, there's nothing wrong with tradition. For those that like the ritual of it, the Catholic Mass is really a comforting thing because you know what's coming. You know what's happening. And so there's a lot that like and enjoy that. And I mean, we have a structure that we haven't strayed from for a lot of years, and that there's nothing wrong with that. It's the life and the attitude behind it that needs shaping and needs Jesus. And frankly, it needs the Holy Spirit. And again, that's another entity of God that we as the Baptists tend to run away from because we're scared of it. Why? Because if the Spirit has control, then we don't.
Then we don't. Yeah.
And so, so what do I do? What did I do when I faced betrayal? Well, one, I had to get alone with God for a while, and really allow Him to shape my attitude about that, and to give me the strength to forgive that person. Does it mean that I wanted to be around them? Nope.
No.
Does it mean that I wanted to go up and have cheerful conversation with them on Sunday mornings when they came in? No, I didn't. Because they hurt me and they hurt my family. So, I have to love you in Jesus. I don't have to like you in Jesus.
Put that on a t-shirt.
I got to love you. I don't have to like you. And I didn't like them. And I don't like them because they're still ruining the church that they're in right now. And that's an unfortunate problem. But that stems back to nobody would hold them accountable for that. And if you abdicate, and I'll put my dad hat and take my pastor hat off for a moment. If you abdicate that responsibility to the pastor, or the pastor needs to handle that, then by golly, you better give them the authority to do what needs to be done. But don't give them the responsibility of it and hold them accountable to it if you're not going to give them the authority and support them to say, hey, whatever you need to do in that matter is fine.
Right. Yeah.
But we don't. We give people in leadership, hey, go handle that. But then we don't like the way they handle it. Okay, you can't do that. I had a VBS director one time that handed off
some quote that I'm thinking of. You keep talking.
Handed off the stage decoration to a group of 3 or 4 people. They were excited to. I probably told you this story.
I don't think you have.
They were excited to build the stage and excited to create the stage. She had gone off to a conference for a few days, or maybe it was camp. Anyway, and came back and it was done. She walked in, her lips snarled, and they were excited. And she said, "This is the dumbest thing ever. Tear it all down and start over. It's not what I wanted." Well, they said, "But you didn't tell us what you wanted. You just said you wanted it done." See, she handed off responsibility to do it, but didn't give them the authority to do it. And so they left the church because they had been hurt. It's like, this is ridiculous, Understandable.
And
again, if whether you're in pastoral leadership or volunteer leadership, if you're going to give somebody a responsibility to do it, don't come back and critique how they did it. It's not helpful. Now, if you want to have constructive conversation about things, that's fine.
Well, surely don't give somebody a marching order and then leave for a week and a half and not show back up again and then come back and say, well, why'd you do it that way? That's the way we understood your vision.
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't explain your vision clearly.
You may not have. And again, if you didn't, then take what they give you.
Right, that's on you. That's
on you.
That's your responsibility.
Absolutely. But don't get mad because it didn't happen the way you wanted it to happen. If kids, go clean your room. Mm-hmm. When it all gets shoved under the bed or in the closet, don't complain because you didn't give them proper instructions. Hey, I said clean your room. No, in your mouth said clean your room. Your brain said I want it all organized the way that I would do it.
Right.
But if you don't express that to them, I want you to clean your room in this way. Make sure everything's where it needs to be. Clothes are in the If you don't give them the specifics, then don't get mad when it's all shoved in the closet.
Pick up all the trash, get all your cereal bowls out of your bedroom.
Right. And that runs all the way through, college.
Don't make me come in there with a rake.
I've heard about that. Yeah. Where you just pull it all back out in the middle of the room and say start over.
I don't remember if Marcus and Ryan shared a room or Carter and Ryan were sharing a room. Been some doozies. Doozies.
But it still comes back. So I had to get alone with God for a while and deal with that. In fact, I have a whole Spotify playlist that says I need this now.
We're both ADHD. I don't know if you know that about us. So sometimes we have a tendency to get off topic, but amazingly we find our way back.
We'll
to the
find our way
topic.
back sooner or
So,
later.
Welcome back.
So I have a whole Spotify list that says I need this now, and I created it in that dark period, and periodically I will get in the truck and turn it on and listen to that, or I'll go for a run and I'll put it in my headphones and it's what I need to get my headspace correct again.
Right.
Because sometimes the heart is extremely hurt, and your brain has to control that. And so I'll put the music on, and just it points me back to Jesus, because everything in me wants to focus on the pain, and wants to focus on that person, and wants to focus, and that's exactly what the devil wants me to do.
Sure.
The devil wants me to focus on the pain and the person.
He wants to tear us up from the inside out.
And I have to remember that I need to focus on Jesus. And so this particular list will point me back to that in the middle of that pain. And it redirects my attention. Now, those are very practical steps, but that's what I have to do. And
Those are to use today's language, your coping mechanism.
that's my coping mechanism. I will, I'll go, and take a run or a walk or get in the truck and drive, but I'll have that music playing, and it's a 30-minute playlist, and sometimes it takes twice.
And see, I'll drive in silence. I don't. Sometimes I just need to get alone
Sure, and I do that too.
and
Yeah.
just the quiet stillness of things.
Yeah.
And not get on I-35. Go the other direction.
Exactly.
Take
Exactly.
1187 towards Aledo and just
Yes. Just-
open road
Just
and
get away for
countryside. It reminds me of home.
Mm-hmm.
It's got rolling hills that are Texas rolling hills, not like Missouri rolling hills.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just to get away to find my peace again, because it can get tough sometimes.
It can. It can.
So Sean, thanks for the question.
Yeah.
Again, if you guys have any questions or you want, this is what I would like you guys to talk about. Because, Wednesday night text messages and phone calls, and we're like, hey, man, what do you want to talk about tomorrow?
Well, sometimes it's 7:59. What are we talking about today?
We'll walk in putting headsets on. We're like, okay.
But we don't want to plan it out too much.
Right.
Because the off-the-cuff ADD nature is kind of
It's who we are.
It's who we are.
It's who we are.
Especially when we talk.
It's just dads with coffee. We're just
It's just dads with
yes,
coffee.
we're both ministers of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And we had this discussion yesterday about pastors and ministers and Saddleback. And if you don't know, go ahead and do some research on it. And then if you want my opinion on that, I'll give you my opinion on that. Doesn't necessarily mean that's the church's opinion or.
Yeah, that might need to become a whiteboard thing. The
Yeah.
difference in complementarianism and egalitarianism when it comes to women in ministry, and because both will use the Bible
Yes.
to prove their point. And it's a large discussion. This is why I go to the convention every year. It's because these kinds of things come up, and I want to be a part and represent our church there to say,
Because it's going to be a huge talking point.
oh my
this year.
gosh, it was 2 years ago,
Right.
and here we are again. And it's complicated.
It's complicated.
Yeah,
Much more than we can do on a Thursday morning.
that's right. All right. Well, you guys have a great weekend. And whether it's in person or online, hope to be with you. I can't say see you, but hope to be with you on Sunday. And you guys have a great day.
Love you guys.